Just letting everybody know that we are recording that. So if you don't want your face or audio captured, just be sure to turn off your mic and your camera. Quickly, a little bit about New York Tech Alliance is that we are a nonprofit organization based here in New York City, working, driving access, equity, and inclusion in the New York tech ecosystem to make it one of the most diverse and dynamic in the world. A few quick thank you to all of our amazing partners that do the work that we do possible, make the work that we do possible. Everybody on this list is a tremendous service provider to the tech ecosystem, and you can always find out more about them on our website at nytech.org/partners. A very special thank you, shout out to Mastercard Start Path program. The Mastercard Start Path program is a global startup engagement program that really supports early stage and growing startup companies get access to their networks, customers, technology, and a really fantastic program. We definitely encourage you to check them out at the URL below. And we are so happy to have them as a partner for New York Tech Alliance and this program specifically. On December 7th, we will be having our last New York Tech meetup of the year. It is our Women's Demo Night. We love to end every year off with an amazing celebration of women in tech. Be sure to check it out. It's happening Tuesday, December 7th at 5:30 p.m. And it also includes some really fantastic virtual networking. It's sponsored by both Xander and Retail X Series, and the guest MC is Sapna Shah. She's an amazing angel investor and a fantastic board member of New York Tech Alliance. And then in addition to the New York Tech Meetup, we have one last conversation on December 15th with the amazing founder, Fonta Gilliam of Wealthy. She's also demoed at New York Tech Meetup. She's an amazing entrepreneur, founder. So be sure to join us on Wednesday, December the 15th for that conversation. And then if you want to watch past conversations, we encourage you to do so at nytech.info/founder spotlights. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tanya to tell us a little bit about herself, introduce herself, and then we'll go ahead and get started with the conversation.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Tanya van Court. I'm the CEO and founder of Goalsetter. Goalsetter is a saving, financial education, smart spending, and investing app created especially for the entire family. What that means is we have 17% of kids on our platform who are between 0 and 7 years old, 39% who are between 7 and 13 years old, and 43% who are older than 13 all the way up to college. And adults and parents are using Goalsetter as well. So we're really the first family fintech app, and our goal is to really close the wealth gap in America. We are looking to do so by providing financial education in fun and engaging ways. We provide weekly financial literacy quizzes that are all mapped to national financial literacy standards, but rooted in memes and GIFs from popular culture, hip hop artists, Instagram influencers. So when Beyonce says, "Can you pay my telephone bills?" we use that to explain Beyonce wouldn't need anyone to pay her bills if she would just save for an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of her expenses. Beyonce could pay for her own bills. So we use popular culture to teach financial concepts, but we also have savings tools, investing tools, a teen and tween debit card that comes with financial education attached to it. So we have a rule called learn before you burn. If a parent sets up that rule on Sunday morning, if they haven't taken their financial literacy quiz for the week yet, and the minute they take that quiz, the card will unfreeze again. So we believe in gamification, we believe in fun, we believe in education. And we believe in a world where there is financial literacy and financial access for all. 2 seconds on my background. I grew up in Oakland, California. I now live in Brooklyn, New York. I went to Stanford, got 2 degrees in engineering, and then worked at amazing places like ESPN, where I was responsible for launching ESPN3, the first digital video streaming player in the cable industry. Then moved on to Nickelodeon, ran nickjr.com and noggin.com, and really cut my teeth on how do you create content that's engaging and exciting and at the same time educational for kids and families. And then I was at Discovery Education, where I led the launch of digital textbooks throughout the country to help kids with multimodal learning. I started Goalsetter because my own daughter came to me one day and said, Mommy, for my 9th birthday, I really only want 2 things. I said, what's that? And she said, enough money to save for an investment account and a bike. And I thought to myself, if I can get every 8-year-old out there to say that, I can change the world. So that's a little bit about me. I'm happy to answer any questions and start our dialogue now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that amazing introduction, Tanya. And really, it's good to see you again. I realized that when we were reconnected, I was like, oh, I know Tanya from somewhere, and I couldn't really figure out where. And then I realized you demoed on our New York Tech Meetup stage many years ago in 2016, and the product was called ISO. At the time, and I was just like, why does this sound so familiar? I feel like I've seen this concept before, and I know this concept, and I know Tanya. Where did it come from? And then I went back and looked. I was like, oh, that's why. I've seen her pitch. I saw her pitch one of the first versions of the product really early on in 2016. So it really made me excited to see kind of how it's progressed and how it's changed over time, and just see the new version as Goalsetter. And I have to say, you have done some amazing work. It's really quite beautiful to see the app and just the way that you're thinking about financial literacy and engaging in education for young people, and something I wish I would have had really early in my life. I think I would have learned a lot from an app like this way back when. But really, I'm super excited to dive into the conversation today with you, and really just ask some amazing questions about how you made some of the decisions when starting your business. And that was an amazing background that you provided to set the stage, and told us a little bit about the app that you're creating, a little bit about your personal history and journey, and kind of how from that, it's quite interesting to see how you went from media to children's media to educational media. And I imagine that's all kind of influenced how you've created Goalsetter as the app, and kind of influencing how you're gamifying some of the product. And so I would love to hear how kind of that experience really pushed you to where Goalsetter is, and some of the first product offering. What was the first product offering, and how did you design that?
Yeah, Andy, it's so funny because that time at the New York Tech Meetup, that was when I first started getting some of the early feedback. We started as just a gifting app, and it was literally so that kids didn't get plastic gifts on birthdays and holidays, that they could get money towards goals instead. And so that early endeavor was to kind of interrupt the consumerism that we as villages have introduced to our kids early on. I know so many families who are like, I hate birthdays and holidays because my kids get $300 worth of junk. And I feel like, I am reinforcing bad messages on those days. And my whole community is, my family is, my villages, we're reinforcing bad messages. So we started, again, based on my daughter's insight of, for my birthday, all I want is enough money to save for an investment account and a bike. We started being focused on, goals and helping kids to achieve goals. But then we started talking to parents, and what we heard back from parents was, this is great, but I need so much more. I need a savings account for my kid. I need a debit card for my kid. I need financial education for my kid. I don't know anything about financial literacy myself. How can I explain financial literacy to my kid if I never learned it when I was young? I kind of think I need it for myself too. Can we get something for the whole family? And so it was just kind of like request after request after request. And we had so many people, Andy, who were like you, even at that New York Tech Meetup. I remember someone standing up in the front row and saying, I'm 25, can I use Goalsetter too? And that was my first aha moment of like, oh my gosh, this is not just something that's for young kids. It's not just something for teenagers. It's something that we should really build that can be extensible for an entire family, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to teach healthy financial habits. We're trying to help people achieve their goals. And that's something that we all want, whether we're 16 or 26 or 36 or 46. So all of that is to say, number one, when I was at Nickelodeon, my background was about kids and parents. And so we spent a lot of time in research and focus groups and just listening. And so that was a big part of what we did at Goalsetter. We listened early on, and we listened to what parents said. We listened to what kids said about what they wanted. And then we built a product that was based on what they wanted and what they said they wanted. And it's really interesting because, all of my peers were, introducing teen and tween debit cards into the marketplace, right? You see teen and tween debit cards kind of everywhere you go. And as I said, Goalsetter has a teen and tween debit card too. But guess what? When we went out and talked to parents, only 14% of parents said they wanted a teen and tween debit card. 3 out of 4 parents said, what I really want is a savings account for my family. And I want it to have a teen and tween debit card attached, but I also want financial education, and I want it to grow with my kids as they grow. So I don't want it to be like, oh, when they're 13, they get this thing. I want them to have a trajectory and a path. So we did a lot of listening, and that was part of what I learned at Nickelodeon. That was the first thing. The second thing that I learned at Nickelodeon was we had to make it fun, and we had to satisfy the needs of both parents and kids with one app. And that's what I did in my time at Nick Jr. We would create, we used to say when I was at Nick Jr., it's our responsibility to get parents to turn the channel onto Nickelodeon. But once they turn the channel onto Nickelodeon, it's also our responsibility to get kids to say, don't turn that channel. So we knew that, having a financial app for kids, yeah, that's what parents wanted. But what did kids want? And how could we, make it really fun and engaging for kids? And that's why we use memes and GIFs from popular culture to explain these key financial concepts. And what we hear back from kids is it is fun, and they are learning. We have a young lady here in Brooklyn. She's 13 years old. Her name is Sadeh. And NBC News interviewed her, and they said, what do you love best about Goalsetter? She had hundreds of dollars on her account. She didn't even mention her money. She said, the thing that I love best is that Goalsetter teaches me things about money I never knew I was supposed to know. I thought money was all about saving some and spending some, but now I know it's about frugality and compound interest and the rule of 72. And she's 12. And so, we knew that we had to give them something that they wanted to do themselves. This is not something that parents, were going to force down their throats. Parents don't have time to force more financial education or more things down their kids' throats. They're too busy doing all of the things they have to do at parents. So we wanted something that kids would want and that they would enjoy. So you're absolutely right. Making it fun and making it kid-friendly, culturally relevant, kid-relevant was really important to us. And then the third thing that I'll say is it was important to us to make sure that we had something that grew with kids at every stage. And so understanding what's a kid like who's between 0 and 6 years old, and what are their needs? What's a kid like who's between 7 and 13, and what are their needs? What about 13 and up? What are their needs? From very early on, we thought about Goalsetter as being very similar to this device that we all hold in our pocket, right? We thought about it as it's like an iPhone. You can be 6 years old and pick up an iPhone and use it. You can be 16 years old or 66 years old. And guess what? It works, and you understand the user interface. It works for you. It speaks to your needs. And we thought about Goalsetter in the same capacity. It had to be usable at every stage for every member of the family. And so we tested it out at all stages. And so, it really enabled us to create a product that worked as well for parents who want to save for their own emergency fund, as my 5-year-old who's saving for a Robocompsognathus. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a dinosaur, apparently. So those are some of the learnings that, I had taken from my background and really poured into what we're doing at Goalsetter.
No, that's amazing. And one of the pieces that you talked about is the app, how important the app is to the business of that you've created. And there's a great question that came in about making tech decisions, and if you are a tech co-founder, or how did you find a tech co-founder? And since we're at the New York Tech Alliance, I love to dive into that conversation a little bit and talk about, like, how did you make your first tech decisions? And I get that question a lot, right? Like they have really great, a lot of founders have really fantastic business ideas, but they don't know how to get started on the tech build or where to get started on the tech build. Yeah. So I would love to understand kind of what that journey was like for you.
Yeah, that is a great question, Kate. Thank you for sending that question in. So, I had been an executive in corporate America for many years. I had a whole team of people reporting to me at Nickelodeon, same at Discovery Education, same at ESPN, et cetera. So I had worked with lots of great engineers, lots of great technical minds. And I have 2 degrees from Stanford in industrial engineering. So let's be clear, I was not a coder. I am not a coder. And I know where my strengths lie and I know where my weaknesses lie. Well, one of the things that was very clear to me was I was not going to be making good tech decisions. I just didn't have enough time to come up to speed on, the whole technology space and sector and become an expert in a place where I didn't have the native expertise. And so I knew that I needed someone, if not a tech co-founder, at least a lead engineer who had a strong technical background. I looked for a tech co-founder. You technical people are difficult to find in these markets.
Yes.
When you can go and work for a Google or a Meta or an Amazon and make hundreds of thousands of dollars early on, I didn't have that kind of money to pay. And so I outsourced my tech a couple of times. I outsourced it to India first. That was a disaster. There was too much of a time difference and really hard to cycle my feedback when something wasn't built correctly. So I said, I need something closer. I outsourced it then to New York. And when I outsourced it to New York, that team outsourced it overseas into Europe. And that was a disaster too. And finally, I was on the precipice of giving up. And I walked into my accelerator program at ERA. I was in the ERA accelerator program at the time, and it is a great program. And I talked to one of the leads at ERA, and I said, I can't do it anymore. I can't get this tech done. I need a technical co-founder. I can't find one. I quit. And he said, before you quit, Tanya, I want you to call Nishant. Nishant was one of my fellow CEOs and founders. And he said, Nishant just found his engineering lead out of Argentina. And so I want you to connect with him and see if he can refer you to the recruiter that he used to find his engineering lead in Argentina. And maybe you can find an engineering lead there. I talked to Nishant. And Nishant said, the first thing that you need to do is fire that local agency that you're using today. You're never going to get this done with an outsourced team. You need a team that works for you. Number 2, I'm going to introduce you to this technical recruiter. Number 3, I'm going to help you to interview for the right technical lead. And we're going to get you on your way with developing your own team. And so he introduced me to that technical recruiter who had gone to Stanford and was Argentinian. And so he had 1 foot in Argentina and 1 foot in Silicon Valley. He helped me to hire my lead engineer, and my lead engineer was married to a woman who was a technical recruiter in Argentina. And so all of the rest of our hires, she helped us to secure, and now we have a full development team that's out of Argentina. And so that's how we were able to do it. But I got to tell you, nothing about this startup life is easy. There are a bunch of obstacles. You cannot consider them roadblocks. You have to just consider them obstacles, because there's got to be a way to go around it or over it or under it in order to get to where you need to go. And so for me, finding a technical partner was a big obstacle early on.
Yeah, I hear that quite often. And, I get that question a lot, where do I find my technical co-founder? How do I find it? And then I always tell people it's not an easy process, right? Like, you're looking for someone who believes in your company as much as you do, who ticks all the technical chop blocks that you're looking for. You have to understand how to talk to them, and it's a lot of conversations. It's a very long process to get that, especially if you're coming from a non-technical background and you're learning at the same time, right? What were some of the biggest pieces that helped you along the way? Pieces of technical learning that you learned along the way that helped you to be able to have those conversations in a more streamlined way and eventually know what to ask for when you're building product?
Yeah, Andy. One of the things that I want to the pictures I want to paint and be clear to everyone is that when you are founding a company, you are truly responsible for everything. So for us, I was literally like drawing wireframes, in a coffee shop on a white piece of paper with a pencil. I think our homepage needs to look like this. And I think the app needs to look like this. And here's what the onboarding flow should be. I mean, so I was doing that. I've written some of our, financial education questions myself, stayed up until 3 o'clock in the morning writing those questions. I've done marketing. I mean, I created the name of the product, researched it, designed the logo. And so if you're a founder, one of the things you have to understand is you can't do everything because you are being required to do so much. And so you have to take those areas where you are least equipped and truly outsource them. And for me, that was tech. I mean, I never wanted to be a coder. I never wanted to be, in spite of the fact that I majored in industrial engineering, my interest was more in that from a business perspective rather than a technical perspective. So I knew that tech was not going to be an area that I was that interested in. I love the product. I love educating people. I love the gamification. I love the entertainment. I loved all of those things. And so that's where I spent the majority of my time, which is why I had to outsource tech to someone who I could trust and who was very strong. And my technical leader, by the way, nobody, it is very rare that you see a company that gives employees overseas stock. I found a technical leader who was so strong that I actually gave him stock because it was important for me that he had skin in the game and was as committed to the company as I was committed to him, because I needed to be sure that I had someone who was really my right-hand person. So Andy, I won't even pretend that there was any portion of the fact that I was trying to learn or to master. I wasn't. I was like, I have to be responsible for all of this. I need a strong technical leader and I need a bench. Just in case he goes anywhere, I need a bench of people where someone can step up and take that role. And so that's what we've been developing. We've really been developing a strong bench, a strong team, and a strong relationship with that leader.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think that that's a great point where you're like, this is not an area that I really want to focus on. And I agree with you wholeheartedly that you can't focus on every single aspect of the business. You need to understand everything that's happening, but there are certain day-to-day things that you need to not be a part of. No, I think that's a great point, and something, it's really, really great to hear that advice for the founders in the room. There's so many different paths that we could go take the conversation, but you mentioned working with ERA and the accelerator program, and that's another question I get a lot, like, how do I get started? What program should I apply for? I'm not quite ready to go for funding, but I need some help. Are there opportunities? And I find that the accelerator incubator programs that exist, especially in New York City, are quite powerful and really bring with them a network and the opportunity to perhaps get a small round or an angel round, or just something to get started. Sometimes at zero equity, and sometimes they're taking some equity. So I would love to hear kind of what your experience was in navigating that landscape and trying to decide where to get started.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm the accelerator queen. I was like, and what's my next accelerator? And how about another accelerator? So ERA was my first accelerator program. They really do focus on early stage companies. They look for you to have a working MVP of your product and some demonstration of at least a few customers on that MVP. So, they look for some early indicators of your commitment to this. But they were super helpful. I mean, I had come from a whole career in corporate America where I didn't know anything about starting a company, startup culture, fundraising, or anything else for that matter. I mean, they were really, for me, trial by gentle fire. I mean, I jumped in, and then I had all of these other entrepreneurs, some of them have been serial entrepreneurs, who could say, hey, Tanya, these are the things you should be thinking about early on, and who were really willing to help, which was, such a blessing. And I was so grateful for that. There were the people who were leading the program. There is one individual, John Axelrod, he's one of the two leaders, Marat is the other, and they're both fantastic. But I'd go into John's office and say, okay, John, here's my pitch. And I would, do my 2-minute elevator pitch. And then he'd replay it back for me the way that it should be. And I would always say, oh my gosh, where's my recorder? I need my recorder. Can you just go do my pitch for me? But he knew what a pitch should sound like. He knew what it should include. He knew what was compelling. And so you just really need someone who's been there and done that, who can take you from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds flat, because they have the experience and the expertise. So ERA was great for me. After ERA, I applied to the Morgan Stanley Multicultural Accelerator Program, and that was a fantastic program for me. And Carla Harris was the person responsible for that program, and then later became a board advisor. And so she's on our advisory board right now, and she is truly just the smartest executive I've ever worked with. And I'm so grateful to have her guidance and tutelage along our path. And then I also applied to the Partnership Fund for New York City. And so I was in their accelerator program. They really focus on Fintech. And so if you have a Fintech product, they're a fantastic accelerator. And the fourth accelerator I was in, I told you, Andrea, the fourth accelerator I was in was an accelerator. Oh my gosh, what are they called now? They were called the Financial Institution, FIF, FinLab. They were called FinLab, but they've changed their name. I should know this. Financial Solutions Lab is what they're called now. But they are out of California, and they focus on products and services that serve the underserved from a fintech perspective as well. So a lot of fintech accelerators for me. ERA was a general accelerator. They were not fintech, but then, so I started broad, and then I started, to focus in on accelerators that really were targeted and geared towards my area. But they were really great. I mean, they really helped me to learn a whole new language, to learn a whole new ecosystem that I just didn't know before.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the ERA program. Murat is a great resource. So is John, and it's just great to see the sense of community that they also push forward within their companies, and the different aspects of the ecosystem that they touch is really quite amazing. I definitely encourage people to check out the ERA Accelerator program. And then, we were reconnected actually through the Mastercard Start Path program. And I love working with them, with the people at Mastercard. They're such a great team and tremendous viewpoint. So I often tell people, especially founders, that they need to look for corporate partners, because a lot of them are producing these innovation programs and looking for very specific types of solutions that will help their customers reach their next milestone. And it's it's an alternate to accelerator programs, but it comes with sometimes your paying customers, hopefully, through some of those introductions. So I would love to talk to hear you. You mentioned Morgan Stanley, and then we were connected through Mastercard. So talk about what that was like to integrate and connect with corporate type innovation centers.
No, you're absolutely right. And I actually should have, as you said, I kind of think about the Mastercard Start Path program in this other realm.
Right.
But you're right, in many ways, they are similar to an accelerator program. But, with all of the benefits of the big footprint of Mastercard behind you. And so Mastercard for us has been enormously helpful on everything from product innovation, where we go to them and say, hey, we want to innovate our product in X way. Do you know of any products or services that we can plug into that do this? Do you know of any other fintechs that are having this challenge? Do you know of any other fintechs who are innovating in this way? And they're so plugged into the entire financial services community that, they can very easily kind of point us left, right, or center to help us go where we might need to go. And then, they have just been overall a really fantastic partner for many of the efforts that we're launching. Goalsetter is not just selling products on a B2C basis, but we are also partnering with major corporations. And so we're partnering with major corporations in two ways. One is we are white labeling Goalsetter for banks, financial institutions, and wealth managers so that they can offer a product like Goalsetter to the next generation of their customers, and they can develop customers in their own ecosystem who will be their next generation of customers. But second, we are partnering with major corporations to offer Goalsetter as an employee benefit. And so we've begun to have those conversations with Mastercard. I mean, you can imagine if you're an employee of a major corporation and they say, we're going to give you this fantastic product to help your family learn about financial education, learn about financial literacy, save better, invest better, that's really compelling, particularly post-COVID. People want their employers to provide them with more financial services and solutions. And so all of these B2B efforts have been efforts that Mastercard is helping us to pursue as well.
That's amazing. And so as you're building your company, how can you talk about the funding and when you decided to go out for external funding and what that funding path journey was kind of like for you?
Yeah, so so funding.
It's the number one question we get, right?
I don't know why the letters FUN are in funding because they do not belong in that word at all. So so funding was really challenging. You know, the first part is that everyone tells you go pursue a friends and family round. And, you know, it should be no secret. This has now been talked about exhaustively and extensively, but as an African-American woman, and when people are, you know, founders from underserved minority communities where there's a huge wealth gap in this country, there's not a real set of wealth that you can tap into in the way some other founders can tap into it. So, you know, whether you're from an underserved community or you're just a person who doesn't have those networks, that friends and family round can be really difficult. So I sat down and I literally made a list of where do I have networks that have money? And so I said, okay, I worked in corporate environments, the executives there have money. So, I mean, I just wrote down, who do I know with money? And so the executives there have money. Okay, I serve on this board. The people on that board have money. And hey, and one of those people on that board is actually an angel investor. Okay, so I should talk to that person. I know he's talked about himself being an angel investor before. I should talk to him. And I went to Stanford. And so, you know, I'm a member of the Stanford Black Alumni Association. Some of those people have to have money. They've got some great jobs. Okay, so Stanford Black Alumni Association, right? And so I made all of these circles of where could I go to pitch my idea? And the very first place I pitched was actually at the Stanford Black Alumni Association conference. And they have a conference, you know, every 2 years. It happened to be right around the time that I was about to launch Goalsetter and in the midst of starting to try to raise funding. And there was a technology panel. And at the end of the technology panel, they said, does anyone want to ask a question? Well, I made sure that before they even got to, you know, the questions, 5 minutes before the panel was ending, I was the first one at the mic. And I took the mic and I pitched in that room and said, hey, I don't have a question, but I'm about to launch this company and here's what it's doing. And if anyone's interested in investing, I'd love to talk to you. I had no idea where one would get angel investment from. I didn't know that there were angel groups. I didn't know anything about this space. So that was where I got my first investors, from people who had been lifelong friends, who I'd gone to school with. And they started to write me some of those initial checks. And then I just kept circling every one of those wagons. And then I did go and pitch to angel groups. And angel groups is a really important place to pitch to. I pitched to angel groups. I pitched in, you know, pitch competitions, anywhere where there were people who were interested in investing money. I pitched there, and it was exhausting. And I was pitching all the time. And so, you know, it's one of the things that you've got to, you know, either you come with family resources that can write you some checks, or you're just going to be on a circuit, and you're going to be on a circuit of pitching to angels, pitching to angel groups, pitching at pitch competitions, until you can get enough traction with your product, with your business, that you can start to raise money in different ways. And an accelerator program is a great way to raise money too, because when you go to that accelerator program, right, you inevitably have a demo day. And the demo day is the last day in your accelerator program, where the 10 companies in that program get up and pitch, and they pitch in front of a room full of investors. And the investors are early stage investors who are willing to write checks, angel investors who are willing to write checks. So the bottom line is, it's all about getting access to people who are in this world of angel investing or early stage investing. Once you get access to those people, then you will start to find more access and more access and more access. But you got to put yourself, in the room where it happens, as Hamilton says.
I completely agree. I love that you said it's a circuit that you go on, because it is. It's your job right at that moment to just get out and talk about your startup and your idea as much as anybody will listen, right? Like you have to constantly be pitching and making sure that people are aware, because you're the only cheerleader at that point trying to make it happen, right? So I love that. I mean, that's a great point. We only have a few more minutes left in the conversation, and I really want to focus on where Goalsetter is today and what's coming up for Goalsetter. One of the attendees asked, like, what's the next year look like for Goalsetter, and I would love to hear that. But in addition to that, I would love to hear kind of from the founder experience, what surprised you most? I met you when you were pitching ISO at the beginning. It is now Goalsetter. You've gone through some accelerator programs. You've gained some funding. You're really making a huge impact, I feel, in the world of fintech and financial literacy. So what's next for Goalsetter? And then what's been the most surprising thing from when you started to where you are today?
Yeah. The most surprising thing is how hard it's been. And I just want to be honest and really honest with all of you. I mean, like, I've had really hard jobs in my life. And I thought, oh, okay, this is just another hard job. But it's not. And it goes to, Vikram's question about work-life balance, about, how do you do it all? When you're at a job, you get home at 6 o'clock and you go and you eat dinner and you play with your kids and you watch television at night. And when you're starting your own business, you don't do any of that. You don't. You're like working while you're talking to your kids, having a call while everyone else is having dinner. It really is a tremendous sacrifice. And how have I done the work-life balance thing? I have 4 kids. 3 kids that I've had on my own, 1 bonus kid, and all of them need attention. And it's been really, really difficult. And so the thing that I would say is, number one, I've been a solo founder. So being a solo founder ain't great. So find a co-founder to the extent that you can. Number 2, it's hard until you see the light at the end of the tunnel. And by the way, and then it's still hard. The challenges are just, but I think now we're at a place, frankly, Andy, where we are seeing that light at the end of the tunnel. What I told people for the longest period of time, and you could listen, guys, you got to remember, and I'm just going to always be honest about it. I'm a Black woman founder. We get less than 1% of funding of the entire ecosystem. So I was out raising money and people were telling me, oh, kids fintech is not a thing. Meanwhile, they were pouring money into some of my white male competitors. And I knew that the product that we had was a better product. It was, what people were asking for, what parents wanted, what kids wanted, and we couldn't raise. And then George Floyd got murdered, and all of a sudden, people woke up and looked at what we were doing and said, wow, what they're doing is really cool and it's really important. And so Kevin Durant invested in us, and Chris Paul invested in us, and Robert F. Smith, the billionaire philanthropist, invested in us. And then major companies like Mastercard and US Bank and PNC invested in us. And so, sometimes you feel like you are beating your head against the wall, and it takes longer than you ever would have thought and ever would have wanted it to take. But that break does come, and sometimes it won't, but sometimes it will. And in our case, it did. And so we are about to raise a Series A round. We're closing on that Series A round, I think actually tomorrow. Yay. And so that's awesome. And that's going to give us the win that we need to do a lot of white label deals with banks and financial institutions, to offer Goalsetter as an employee benefit to lots of organizations. If any of you out there want Goalsetter for your employer, please shout at me afterwards. I would love to come and figure out how we can pitch your employer. But that's what we're focused on over the next year. We're focused on Goalsetter really in our B2B, our B2B offering, because we know that's going to let us get out there and get out there quickly and get in the hands of lots of kids and families who need us, and we can change their lives. So that's what's next.
That's amazing. I could talk to you for hours, and I can't wait to schedule a follow-up conversation to talk about like the B2B experience, because that's a whole nother conversation and a whole nother set of learnings. And you were building something that was B2C mostly. Now you're adding this B2B piece, and it's a very different way to build a product, a very different way to market a product and to get the revenue starting to come through the door. So we could probably, you know, have a conversation just on that part. But we are running out of time. And before we go, I love to ask all of the founders, what is one thing that has that has happened in the last week or that you're looking forward to that is absolutely happy and something that's giving you joy?
Oh my gosh, you shouldn't have asked me that because I have the perfect one. So it was actually 2 weeks ago. Last week I had my thyroid removed, which is why I'm talking a little funny. So that was not what brought me joy. No. So I'm gonna go 1 week back, Andy. I'm gonna take a grace period of 2 weeks since last week I was out of commission. But 2 weeks ago, we launched a movement at Goalsetter called One Stock, One Future. This movement is to get 1 million Black and Latino kids investing to help close the wealth gap for the next generation. We're challenging corporations across the country to donate 1,000 shares of stock to 1,000 kids so that we can put 1 share of stock into each one of those kids' accounts. And we launched this movement in conjunction with Robert F. Smith, the billionaire philanthropist. And we did it 2 weeks ago, and we rang the bell at the New York Stock Exchange. And so Goalsetter was lit up everywhere on the New York Stock Exchange. We were, you know, on television streaming to millions of viewers for this extraordinary effort that we just launched. And we've already had companies like UBS and Lyft and Twitter and Delta Airlines and HP all contribute to this effort to get 1 million Black and Latino kids investing, which is super exciting.
That's absolutely amazing, and that is a tremendous thing. That's bringing me joy to hear that. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I just love the entire conversation has been really fantastic. I'm so glad that we have been reconnected, and it's great to see where Goalsetter has come and kind of what you're doing in the world. Again, I can't wait to have you back for another conversation and figure out what's next for you personally and Goalsetter as a company. I encourage everybody to check you out online. Is it okay to share your email with the audience tonight? Put it in the chat and make sure that they can stay connected to you, or your LinkedIn, whatever you're comfortable with. Yes, we can get that shared. And then, yeah, I'll do the same. And thank you everybody for tuning in. I know that it's a holiday week, and I hope that I wish everybody the opportunity to take some time and spend it with their friends and family. And Tanya, it was such a pleasure to spend this time with you. And thank you so much for everything.
Thank you for having me, and thank you all for joining. It was great to be here.
Great conversation. Okay. Enjoy.
Thanks. Bye, Andy. Happy holidays.
Bye.